we don't need to be a band that puts out an album every year or every 2 years. I mean, we want to make sure that we take the time to craft something in a way that feels like we're maintaining our integrity. And that's not to say that bands that put out records fast don't. I mean, it's just we want to make sure we're doing things right. We don't want to rush something out just for the sake of getting it out, just to please fans when it's maybe not as good as what we could have made it. So we're gonna take our time, and if it takes 3 or 4 years, well, then just fucking wait. There's a bunch of other great music you can listen to in the meantime, and we'll be around. We'll come back.
Ryan and Cam of A Flock Named Murder, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. As we're recording this, usually I talk to people, a few days or a few weeks, sometimes a few months before an album comes out. In this case, we're talking a few days after the album came out. It's Monday as we're talking. Album came out on Friday. How was Friday for you guys?
It was pretty nonstop. Just seeing like a lot of the reactions. I mean, the whole last few weeks have been pretty nonstop. Just seeing, the response that the record's been getting, and just a lot of the comments that people have been leaving, the reviews we've been getting. It's been very overwhelmingly positive. So I'm really stoked about that. We're getting a lot of very kind words just about like the songwriting, the themes. There's some reviews saying it's one of the best records of 2025, which is pretty humbling. I think that's pretty sweet. The Spotify counts have been going up a lot too, which is pretty nice. So I'm very happy with how things are going. So
awesome. Yeah, it is a release date these days is unfortunately spending just a lot of time on a computer and your phones. Cam, did you have some time off on Friday to actually just take it in and celebrate? Or were you also just like following up with all the messages and...
Yeah, I mean, my cat wanted in on this, by the way. This is Copper. You don't have to edit him out.
Copper's welcome.
Copper's part of the band.
Yeah, he might as well be, yeah. It was funny. A friend of mine... who's actually on the album. He's got a guest vocal part at the end of the second track. He's from Drofnosera. Mm-hmm. He was messaging me while I was at work, and I'm a construction guy, right? I work in residential like framing carpentry, and which just means I build the structure of the house. But point is, I'm busy, right? I'm all over. I'm running all over the place, and he messages me. I'm on my lunch break. And he was like, how does it feel to have it out? And I was like, it feels like any other day. I'm busting my balls for a paycheck. And I got sawdust in my orifices, and I got home, and my partner and I was like, you know what? We haven't ordered donuts for a while. Like, we ordered Cops donuts, right? Anyway. And I was like, let's order donuts to celebrate. Didn't have dinner yet, just had donuts, and then fell asleep on the couch with my clothes on. That was my day.
I'd say that's a pretty good, that's a good way to measure a successful day, falling asleep with a half-eaten donut, sawdust everywhere, apparently.
Yeah,
sawdust in my orifices, that's a good name for a band or a good name for a song, and I feel like that has to happen at one point. Awesome, awesome.
And I was just telling my students about when it was coming out. Like I'm a guitar teacher, so I didn't have sawdust in my nose. I have before when I did woodworking, but and I was just telling them like just about the release date and everything, and they saw just how much I was like partially teaching them, partially like answering questions with the label, partially talking to the bandmates. I'm just like I'm kind of doing this around the classroom the whole time, and but it was exciting. It was. My head was spinning, and I'm surprised it's not upside down right now, but it was good, so...
Awesome. The album's getting good traction, good reactions, but, you're also now being looped in this... We're going through this, like, golden age, if you will, for, like, atmospheric post black metal, what you guys bring to the table, and it's not a regional scene necessarily, and then there's bands with high intensity to much more chilled. You know, anything from a Guerrilla to like a Der Weg eine Freiheit. But there's a lot of good albums in this loosely defined genre coming out in the last few years, and now you're kind of like front and center of that as well. Does it feel like that you're part of a broader thing, that this is you're part of something bigger than just yourselves? There just seems to be something moving right now. What's your take on that?
I mean, I feel like the band itself is bigger than ourselves, just with the kind of music that we've created, which I guess, I'm not, it's hard to say that we feel like we're part of any particular scene like that, because when we set out to write this music, it's not so much like we want to be, we want to be like the best post black metal or the best atmospheric black metal. I mean, if anything, a lot of the reactions we've been getting, people are having a hard time pigeonholing us into a certain genre, and we're very much taking the stance at this point. We're like, we'll just let people argue it out, and call us whatever the fuck you want, just don't call us late for dinner. So I kind of feel like we're sort of part of a scene, but we're also kind of not part of a scene. I feel like we're kind of doing our own thing. Not like we're trying to be pretentious and make a genre. No, we're not. We're trying to write something that's authentic to us, and we're blending a whole bunch of things into the crock pot and seeing what kind of good dish we make. So I do think there's some records in that kind of scene that we can, I guess, compare ourselves to. But I mean, I think more like Old Wolves in the Throne Room, that sort of thing. Or Cam's huge on Weakling, for instance, which Weakling's a sick band, very influential band in that sort of scene there.
The whole post black thing is kind of is all Weakling's fault in a way.
Yeah.
No, I mean that in a good way, but yeah. But anyway, I'll let Ryan finish. Sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, I always, for me, Agalloch's my favorite band, so I always find ways to bring it back to Agalloch, whether it's accurate or not. And I don't know, I feel like there's things that can kind of fit us in with a bunch of different little niches, depending on what aspects of your sound of our sound you really pay attention to. So it's yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm cool with being part of a good scene. I just don't know what scene that really is in a way. So
yeah. But something else that this attention brings is obviously also, I mean, sorry, that all this feedback and these good reviews, it comes with attention. This is the second album. Previous albums have been a few years now. Do you also now have that realization of like, hey, people are paying attention, and if we are allowing ourselves to look ahead at what has to come next, it's like we probably don't want to sit another 5-6 years on album number 3. Like, does the realization that people are paying attention, does that come with a little bit of pressure now?
I'm not so sure if it's because people are paying attention that we feel like a pressure. If anything, it's just like this process of putting out the second record was a lengthy one. I mean, we can get into all the details as to why it took so long. It's some of it's interesting, some of it's just boring life shit, right? But we know we don't want it to take another 6 or 7 years to put out the third album, especially because we're already writing it, and a good chunk of like the skeletons of the songs are already complete.
Okay.
So we're still fixing up some specific instrumentation, still got to fit lyrics to it and all that. So hopefully it won't take as long for the next one. But it's not so much that I'm not sure at this point if I'm feeling a pressure from the fact that people are really paying attention, that like, oh man, we need to make sure we get the next one out, because I think we all unanimously agree in the Flock camp that it's not about it's good when it's done when it's good, right? So we want to take our time to do things right. We don't need to be a band that puts out an album every year or every 2 years. I mean, we want to make sure that we take the time to craft something in a way that feels like we're maintaining our integrity. And that's not to say that bands that put out records fast don't. I mean, it's just we want to make sure we're doing things right. We don't want to rush something out just for the sake of getting it out, just to please fans when it's maybe not as good as what we could have made it. So we're going to take our time, and if it takes 3 or 4 years, well, then just fucking wait. There's a bunch of other great music you can listen to in the meantime, and we'll be around. We'll come back. So
yeah. Okay. Now, some bands say that they're like family. You guys are actual family.
Yeah,
that is an interesting dynamic that you add to to a band, like especially when when we dissect or the themes that you mentioned earlier, like, oh, people are liking the themes. Well, those themes can be pretty bleak. You guys, that desolation, existentialism comes back. Do sometimes you guys look at each other, like Cam? Do you sometimes look at Ryan and go like, "Are you okay, dude?" Like what's that like being in such a creative relation with close family? I couldn't. I mean, I'm the youngest of two brothers. I couldn't imagine. I think going through such a process with my brother. That must be at times a tough relationship. Like you can really hold up a mirror to each other with like few other people could. I would imagine. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, certainly that's true. As far as the themes and stuff, I'm kind of the theme guy. As much as Ryan and Mike are like singing everything, I write all the lyrics, and most of like the thematic stuff comes from me, with input, of course, like on our art, for example. Like it was mostly my idea, but like I look to those guys for like input, or at the very least like the thumbs up that it's not stupid. But yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly it's got its positives and negatives, because like you said, you put it well when you said like we could hold the mirror to each other in a way that few others could. That's definitely true. I don't know that necessarily in the past. I would say maybe when we were less mature, we would argue a lot more. And our creative differences, if it could even just be like some small stupid thing in a song, like not that any part of a song is wasted or stupid, but like something that's like kind of like, why are we getting into the weeds about this part of all things, like I think that has greatly improved over time as we've just gotten older, and but more importantly, like just learn to communicate better, especially when it comes to differences. You can communicate great with anyone when you're having a great time and you think everything rules, right? But like when you have like a difference, it's like how you deal with that. And I don't need to get into all the ways that we bicker, because we still do, right? But I feel that we've both gotten to be a lot more mature and give each other a benefit of a doubt, especially if like something is said that kind of irks you in a certain way. But like normally if someone else said that, it wouldn't irk you that way. It's just because it's Ryan and because I've known him for 30 years and it reminds me of some stupid thing from 10 years ago. Like, who cares, right? Like we've I think both grown enough to learn when to like let certain shit slide, like, oh, certainly he didn't mean it like that, or whatever. As far as the thematic stuff, as much as like I said, a lot of it comes from me, that's not to say that Ryan's passion when he's singing it is not genuine. Like it's even if something, the thing about with the way I write is a lot of things can be interpreted a little loosely. So it's totally cool as long as it's not totally off script. Like he's got his own connection to the lyrics in a way that's maybe different from mine. And I try not to be the guy to say like, oh, well, your interpretation is wrong. I think it's important to let things move people in a certain way that's authentic to them. As long as it's not misinterpreting someone's words to be misrepresented in like a hurtful way that I did not intend, which is never the case, of course, right? But at least not within the band anyway. But yes, it can also be great. Getting back to your original question, because I'm getting away with it, I think. A positive of being in the band with your brother would be like, we know how each other like ticks so well. Like and we know our influences so well, because even though nowadays like there's definitely some stuff that I listen to that Ryan's less into and vice versa, but we understand where we're like coming from so well with like an idea or an inspiration. And there's certain ways that Ryan and I write together that I just don't have with other people because I am in other bands, and I have a unique chemistry with different people. But with Ryan, I can, like, if I have a riff idea, I can like kind of sing it to him in like a very drummer way and like describe the kind of bands I'm thinking and get really close. Like he'll interpret it in a way that's really close. And then of course he's got free reign to change it because, you know, he's the guy that knows best, right? But even just within our songwriting process, you get like a cool synergy where, because we've had so many shared influences over so long, he'll write something and I'll kind of immediately kind of get where it's going, which is pretty fun. Like when we get into that groove and we're just like rolling with each other, like really, I guess synergy is a good way of putting it. Like when you get that energy going, it's almost like you can't get the ideas out fast enough sometimes. And it's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely the next album won't be 7 years then.
No. Well, part of the 7-year thing though, like that was well, I mean, some of this material is actually like closer to 10 years old. It spilled over into the end of album 1 writing sessions. But the long and the short was we were writing music that was more ambitious than we could actually do. So a big part of what took so long is we kind of had to come into our own skill set wise on our instruments. And then the other part of it is, of course, money. Like, if you want to fund the next record, we'll record it tomorrow.
The songs are for people that are newer to the band. The songs are, you know, not quite smoke on the water, right? You guys make long songs that are layered. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of evolution within the songs as well. And this album, definitely, I think that's kind of what you alluded to just now. Definitely more adventurous than the previous work. In this process that you guys were creating, like, were there elements that you tried out with this album that really stuck, that if you said like, oh, we got a good idea already where we're going with album number 3, like, are there specific elements that we get on this album that we should definitely expect to see more of on album number 3?
Absolutely. You know, like Cam was alluding to, like some of the earliest incarnations of these ideas span back pretty much a decade at the end of album 1. And there's some songs on this album that kind of help bridge the gap in a way. So even though this album's very much a beast in its own, it's also bridging the gap, I guess, between where we went from album 1 and then where we are now and where we'll go for album 3 as well, right? So, for instance, the opening track, Garden of Embers, I think I had the earliest structure of that song, which was pretty much unchanged for many years, for this whole time, aside from maybe tweaking a few things on guitar. It was, and of course Cam refining his drum parts, but like the skeleton of it, I think I had done already in like 2014 or 2015 there. So it's an old fucking song. And I mean, to me, it feels ancient. I'm just like, man, people are hearing it now. Well, technically they heard it a couple years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
All of it. But anyways, you know, getting back to the point, there's a lot of that spans from some of the melodic black metal work that I was doing on An Appointed Time. And then with where we're headed with album 3, it's still very much has your melodic and post black metal in sections there, but there is a much heavier influence from, there is quite a bit more doom on the record, and there is a lot more death. We're actually flexing our death metal muscles a little bit more. So some of the darker moments that you hear in songs like Pierced Flesh Catharsis and To Drown in Obsidian Tides, it's gonna continue kind of going a little bit more in that direction, but a little bit more, I guess, flexing the ferocity a little bit more as well. So I think Catharsis is definitely one of those tunes that it kind of, you know, we're not done doing stuff like that yet. I guess I'll say it like that.
The fact, so go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say to that point, like, there's definitely some more like dark and dissonant parts, but not lacking the melody, which is Ryan's first foremost strength, is writing like really interesting and complementary like melodies and counterpoint melodies within a song, like between the two guitars at the same time, all that stuff. But there's like we definitely have a passion for like just fucking white knuckle ferocity, like vicious shit. I'm wearing a Dead Congregation shirt right now, you know? And I love that stuff so much. And it's definitely creeping into our playing more over time, especially as I've gotten better and I can keep up with more of the, like, the fast shit. But it's also important to all of us to retain that adventurous spirit and identity that I feel is, as much as album 2 is different from album 1, I feel like there is a through line that connects a lot of these ideas. And at the end of the day, like, we're not going to be a better death metal band than Dead Congregation. They're already one of the best. So like, it might as well do something different, right? So even when we're dipping into that influence, it comes back around to ideas, and also even just doing those types of ideas, the more death metal-y stuff that Ryan's mentioning and the darker ideas. I feel like we do it in a way that's very much a Flock Named Murder, and it'll come back around to some ethereal type of idea in places as well, because, you know, it's always been a part of our identity, and it's important to retain some of that, I would say.
Yeah. That's the type of thing that, like, I don't, you know, I want to flex certain muscles more in the writing that I have for those kinds of ideas, but I don't want to totally negate the other things that have been very formative to my influences as well, my riff writing, right? So yeah, there's going to be some dark and aggressive moments, but, you know, I know for myself, when, like, with some bands that have been coming out over the last, I guess, 15 years or a little bit more with the dark and aggressive side, there's almost like there's an atonality in the riffing that is really cool. They're good at it, but I have a hard time writing stuff like that. So it's going to be hard for me to write something that doesn't have, like, you know, I want to be able to hear like a discernible riff. I want to be able to hear a discernible melody, even if it's still fucking nasty, right? So yeah, there's always going to be that side to us, I think.
Is that evolution, and that came with the maturity and just, you know, increasing your own skills to allow you to do stuff a little bit more darker, more intense, more technical, maybe. Are you noticing that when you are playing older songs from the first album, that those are also played differently today now? If we see you live today and you were to play a song from album number 1, has that song evolved quite a bit compared to when it was recorded? Or are you trying to keep as much to how it was recorded to honor that song? Or how do you allow yourself to also kind of like evolve the way that you play older stuff live now that you are able to do it a little bit more adventurous?
Well, speaking just for myself on the guitar standpoint, I'm very much trying to just keep things true to the record, because, you know, for myself, when people hear these songs, I want to hear them as they know them, right? Okay. Now, that said, I don't think we're still a pretty young band in this respect as well, and I know that over time it's normal for bands to maybe try different renditions. Like, for example, I can't remember what songs Tool did, but there were some songs that they did in recent tours where they kind of redid the structure a little bit, and they just made something new just to kind of freshen it up a little bit, which is cool. And I think over time, it could be interesting to try something like that with some old songs to kind of breathe a new life into them. But that said, I still want people to recognize the song that they know, and I want that to maintain itself. So now that said, in terms of, like, I guess Cam can speak for that, like how he might approach playing certain parts these days. Maybe he changes a beat or whatever, or maybe the approach is different. You know, you can talk on that.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it concise, but I would say that for myself, album 1 was an interesting time because it was the writing process for album one was a little bit before I was really kind of taking the meat and potatoes, like technique and stuff like that in my drumming seriously. Mm-hmm. But I was still very much writing what was ambitious for me at the time. So album one was a difficult learning experience in the studio for me. There were ideas that ended up on there where I don't think I could play it like that even now, not because it was too hard, like outright even for me now, but because I was punching above my weight class with certain ideas. I ended up playing it in a way that was all over the place, and it's very hard to do something like that on purpose. Like when you have a part that's like a hodgepodge part, there's like a blast beat and submerge for the second last track. That's like I was aiming for something that I could not do, and it is a little bit wonky. And I think it's got a cool energy to it on the record, but it's really hard to play wonky like that on purpose.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so certain things like that, I try to represent the vibe and play it similar, but certain things are adjusted just for consistency's sake. And there's certain things on the record where like I'm just such a different drummer now. And in a lot of ways was inexperienced at the time. So there's ways that I don't overhaul a part, but I might play certain things with a bit of a different flair that's coming from just like the confidence of years of getting better, right? I would say that I do love bands, certain bands that will do like an experimental medley of something live. Like I've never seen Ulver, but I know they're known for doing it. Swans does it and stuff like that. I do like bands like that quite a lot. But for what we're doing in this band, I do feel that representing the vibe is important and keeping things intact as they are.
As we're talking about how you played some of these old songs live potentially, to wrap us up, the very logical question that follows that then is, when do we see you live again? What can we keep our fingers crossed and our eyes open for?
We are going to do an album release show in the summer. It hasn't been announced yet, and we're still solidifying a couple details with it, but that is for sure something that's going to happen. And we were actually talking, when it comes to doing some stuff out of town, we've been wanting to do this for a while, and we had to hold off on planning it for a little bit because we were getting another live guitar player mixed into the fold. But we have a guy, and he's been hungry as hell, and he's been learning our stuff, and he's been playing great. So we are going to look at like doing some things over the summer. So
awesome.
Yeah. And regarding the album release, just a little note there is we're also sort of curating the lineup a little bit.
Yes,
it was important to all of us to. It's not finalized yet, right? But it was important to us to have bands play with us who are not only friends but like people that have been with us a long time and seen us grow and supported the vision and all that kind of stuff for many years. So,
not a random group of bands, but
yeah. Which don't get me wrong, I like that. I like hearing new bands, meeting new people and stuff. But for the album release, we definitely wanted to have have the long time people in there. So if people have been paying attention, you might know a couple of them. We'll see.
All right. Awesome. Well, Ryan and Cam, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I hope you get to finally find some time in between getting sawdust everywhere or guitar kids asking you a bunch of annoying questions to actually make some time available to just kind of reflect on everything and enjoy this moment as well and fully take it in. We're excited to hear that there's going to be a cool release show coming sometime soon. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. In the meantime, everybody can go check out the new album. It's available now everywhere where you want it. Cam, Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, man.
Jasper.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.